Let's talk about everyone's favorite class, the Shaman. So what does the Shaman do? The Shaman is a kind of higher initiative, like medium-high initiative class that debuffs enemies, and that's basically all it does. Now, the debuffs are quite strong and can allow your party to just like tank groups of enemies because they'll be so debuffed, they'll deal almost no damage. So if you combine this with any kind of basic tank or offensive setup, it should enable it to kill somewhat effectively because it basically just completely debuffs the enemies. So let's look at the Shaman. In this case, the first Shaman you get is Selvie. Now, where do you get her? I'll show this really quickly. We're running out of time. All right, you can get her in one of two locations. Apparently, you can get her here. Where I actually got her was up here. A little bit harder to get. You have to kind of run past a bunch of dangerous enemies. But as soon as you beat the mage battle in this area, you just kind of run around and you can get her this way. But also apparently she spawns here. So this is where you get her. You just talk to her. That's literally it. You just talk to her. And then to actually use this thing, you want to put her on the back line. Let's check this out. All right, you want to put her on the back line, ideally with some kind of protection. In this case, I'll go over the details first, and then we'll go over the build that I'm running on it. All right, so Staff Infantry Caster boasts the power to enfeeble enemies, can sap enemy PP, restricting their actions, and inflicting weakening debuffs. So 6 stamina as party leader, 100 mobility, which is pretty average for most, ground units that are just running around that don't have like high mobility, like Thief or Cav or something. Take less damage from magic assists. So this is nice for tanking magic assists if you want her to be the party leader. But the speed, I don't really recommend it. She's also not an assist type. So even though she is a mage, shamans are mages, they do not have an assist type for the magic assist like other mages. Now, all right, let's look at these skills. They're all type sabotage. So passive curse, this is the basic thing she starts with until she hits level 10. Inflicts passive point -1 and initiative -10 on a row of enemies. Now this can be good for reducing enemy initiative so that you can hit before them, potentially killing before them, potentially setting up combos, using stuns on them, things like this, to get a huge advantage. It also removes passive points, which could be a problem. Maybe there's enemies with annoying passives, you want to remove those passives. This also could be hugely useful there. The offensive curse, this is more so for dealing with just like damage reduction. Inflicts physical attack -50, magic attack -50 on a row of enemies. Now, as far as I can tell, this just lasts for the entire fight. So it just completely halves their damage. And if you combine that with tanks, it's just crazy. Now, is this better than the other team comps that just like wipe everything out? It's debatable. I think passive curse is situationally useful to rotate in just to spike enemies' passive points down in the back line, because there's some enemy team comps that are kind of obnoxious with like spamming like magical barrier, like anything with like a row of those royal knights or whatever in the back, those magical knights that negate magic attacks, those can be obnoxious. So just passive cursing those is valuable. What else do we have? We have quick curse. So this activates when an enemy attacks, inflicts attack -20%, and inflicts critical seal. So if you have high initiative and you offensive curse, and then you quick curse, you are looking at -70% if it stacks in this way. Like if it's just reduced it by 50 and then reduced it by 20, it should be -70% damage, which is pretty huge. That pretty much neuters an enemy's attack. And it's basically like here, so it can be better than guard in some cases because it essentially does this. If there's a multi-hit attack that you only can guard one of the hits and the other hits get through, it hits the source of the attack. So it just neuters the damage before it gets to you, which is valuable. Now, the team comps that I've been running for these late game chapters of the demo seem to just completely demolish the game without this, but if you run it, it probably can fit in there somewhere. Maybe you can remove a tank and run this, because then you're just taking 70% less damage from whatever's attacking you at all times. Clairvoyance, this is the Valour skill. Improve visibility in the area, rendering enemy units detectable. Ally accuracy, +50 during battle in the area, and it lasts for 30 seconds. So +50 accuracy is very valuable. It allows you to easily hit enemy thieves who typically have like 40 to 50 additional avoid and enemy griffin knights. So it basically just allows you to hit evasive enemies. So you can target enemy utility, you can target enemy damage, and you can hit fix. So it's a utility class. It's decent. It has some interesting things. Some people swear by these. I'll run them a little bit more to see how I feel about them, but they seem decent, maybe like A tier overall, like really strong. I don't know that it breaks the game necessarily. I think other things break the game, but this just seems good. All right, so here's what I'm running for a basic build. So she has super high initiative. I gave her the Witch's Staff from the early game mission, so she gets initiative +3. And then I also gave her Dove Plume, so her initiative is basically as high as a thief, so she should always go first. And you can switch passive and offensive curse around based on what you need, and you can change the rules as well. So if you know, for example, the enemy team has all their damage in the front row, you can just change this to front row. And then I also have Dove Plume for more initiative, and then Lapis Pendants for more quick curses. And then you can switch the Lapis Pendant around for something else. So for example, if you want to run like Carnelian Pendant and Dove Plume, so that you can do offensive curse and then passive curse, or open with passive curse and then offensive curse, you can do that as well. Now the issue with, I think, curse spamming is that based on how initiative works, and anyone can feel free to correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I'm fairly certain that initiative checks for your first actions. So if you have 30 initiative and you go first, and then it goes through everyone else, and then it gets the last thing, like everyone gets their first action, and then it looks at it again for like second actions. So if I offensive curse, and then all the enemies use all of their abilities, the only case that like passive curse could be useful is if there's like additional passive points that need removed. So most cases, I would think offensive curse gets used first, and then if you want to run double AP, like 2 AP, and run Carnelian Pendant, you would passive curse afterwards. But also you have to consider that all of your attacks will go off. Like your first set, like if you have 2 sets of attacks, it's fine. But if you have 1 set of attacks, it's a kind of an issue, because then if you're trying to kill things by removing passive points from like a back line because they're like healing or doing some kind of debuffs on you or something like that, this could still be valuable. Depends on how, like this is only really valuable if your team has multiple AP or something like a sellsword chain attack or a knight chain attack. But other than this, offensive curse plus quick curse can debuff any attacker pretty effectively. And with this build, you can basically just shut down enemy offense for the most part. Now, obviously, if they have offense in their front row and their back row, then that can be a problem. But in these early game chapters, the most enemies get is like 4 units, right? So typically, there's going to be like a tank and then like 3 offense, or like 3 offense and then supports, or like 2 offense in the front and then supports, or like 2 tanks in the front and then damage in the back. So you can really just target wherever the damage is and just completely cripple it, which is valuable for sure. It's not as aggressive as other things, but it is really valuable, and debuffs are really good. It actually was shutting down my one team, but we were under-leveled, so it's hard to say that it's super broken, but yeah, definitely a pretty good class. It's pretty easy to unlock. You just have to go find it, really. And outside of that, if you have more experience with Shaman, definitely let me know how the passive curse, offensive curse combos work out with Carnelian. I feel like it wouldn't be valuable based on order of like execution. Now you could also drop Dove Plume and just try to go for this if your initiative is high enough. So this is something you can do as well. If your initiative is high enough, you can just run this. Now stats almost don't even matter. So her stats are actually kind of bad because she's on Guardian and Precise. Really, you would want Go Getter twice for highest initiative, because this does not deal damage. This class does no damage. Its stats don't matter. The only thing it cares about is initiative. So this is actually a kind of bad unit for this class because she does not have the highest potential initiative value, which is really all you want in this class. So if you were to remake, or if you were to make a new one of these, I would do that. I don't know that you can recruit them in the demo. I think you can. Let me check. Let's see. It would be like up here. Somewhere up here, probably. Let's check all the forts really quick. In this like northern area. I don't think you can. Maybe you can, who knows. But you would want highest initiative for sure. check this one. And we'll check that one over there as well. Yeah, you can. Okay, cool. Yeah, so here's what you would want. Go-getter. Yeah, look at the initiative already. Double go-getter. Hell yeah, dude. 23 initiative at level 6. And then as she levels up, it'll be a little bit higher. So she already has higher initiative than the other character, who has initiative +3 from a staff. So you'd want something like this, and then you could power level it. This would be much better. It's Marcel. All right, so that's it for this one. Definitely go be a go-getter and subscribe, and I'll see you next one. Peace.